Good evening, everybody. I am Tracee Ford, and I am your host for this channel, and I also am the owner of this channel. Tonight we are going to talk about how to schedule your life. If you are a writer and you work full-time, or you have full-time responsibilities as a mother or a caregiver or a wife or a husband or a father or whatever the case may be, it can be very hard to make time to complete your writing. So tonight I want to touch on that. I want to talk about writing if you have a full-time job, and I also want to talk about writing if you do not have a full-time job and writing is your full-time job. So the first thing that I want to say is that this episode may seem like it's a no-brainer, but the tips that I'm going to share with you may help someone. There are parts of this that I am still trying to implement in my own writing career. It is a learning process. I'm going to turn my phone off too in case. There we go. Sorry about that. It is a learning process for everyone. Everyone will find their own groove as a writer. You'll know when you think more clearly. You'll figure out when things are quieter in your life, and you will 9 times out of 10 schedule your writing around and with those times in mind. The first thing I want to suggest to you is to get a calendar. Either a wall calendar, or what I typically use is a day planner. A day planner is very helpful for me because I can write inside the calendar. I also have a wall calendar, but my wall calendar is typically for appointments, so that I can take a look at that and know what appointments I have going on. Then I have like 2 calendars that I work off of, plus I use an app on my phone for a calendar and an appointment scheduler. Decide what days you are going to spend writing and how long you're going to spend writing. You know your schedule best. I recently counseled a friend of mine because he is a writer and he works full-time, plus he goes to school, plus he's trying to be a husband. So he is feeling extremely overwhelmed with his schedule. So I tried to help him knock out some times for him to study, as well as spend time with his spouse, and as well as write. So I want to give you an example. If you are an early person, I would suggest that you get up before you go to work. But if you're like me, I can't do that. I never could do that. I was more clear in the morning, and my weekends in the mornings were usually spent writing. But I was not the kind of person who could get myself up very early out of bed before I got ready for work to write. I just could not do it. Most of my writing occurred during lunch breaks, 15-minute breaks, as well as in my evenings after my son went to bed. Then my weekends, when my son was not home, I would spend writing. And it usually was right when I got up that I would start writing. That's usually when my brain functions a little bit more clearly. Everyone is different. In light of his situation, we worked out, like Monday he would work from like 10 to 7, and then right after work he would spend time at the library for 2 hours writing. Then Tuesday he would work until 7 and spend 2 hours at the library working on homework. Now after his 2 hours were over, because he didn't go into work until 10, he still had time to spend with his spouse. Not very much time, but he still had the time that he needed to give to his spouse. Then Wednesday, he would work again in the library on his writing. Then on Thursday, it would be homework. Friday, we talked about making it a free evening so that he could spend time with his spouse and make it like a date night or just personal time that he needed to either catch up on things at home and just leave it at that. Saturday, we talked about alternatives. Like one week he would work on writing for 4 to 6 hours. Then the next week he would work on homework for 4 to 6 hours. And then after that was done, he could spend all the time he needed with his spouse. On Sunday, we talked about making it a free day, where it was kind of a day off from everything, so that he didn't have to go into work, he didn't have to write, and he didn't have to have any heavy stuff going on. He could focus on family and on his spouse and what was going on in the household. So that's just a simple example of prioritizing and working around a full-time career as well as a school schedule. Swing shifts, retail shifts are going to look much different than someone who has a set shift Monday through Friday. When I was working up until maybe September, I had a set schedule. There for a while I was unemployed, so I could spend any time I wanted writing, but I was in such a state that I couldn't write. So then you have that emotional stuff to deal with as well. But prior to that, I always had a full-time job, and it was always 8 to 4:30 or 8 to 5. And there was usually an hour lunch break in there somewhere, as well as some 15-minute breaks. And even if it was brainstorming, I would sit down and I would brainstorm or write where I knew I was leaving off or put additions in, but I spent that time writing. Now also, in those years, I went to graduate school, and I started my first 2 books in 2008, did not finish them until 2011. The one wasn't finished till 2011. The other one wasn't even finished until like the spring of 2012. So that is a very long time span to spend on a book. But I started back to graduate school in 2009 and wasn't finished with that until 2011. So as soon as I was finished with my graduate studies, I immediately started working on my books again. There's going to be times in your life when you can't write. If a child gets sick, if a parent gets sick, if you get sick, if something happens where emotionally you just don't have it in you, and that's okay. Recognize those times in your life, acknowledge them, and go by them. You have to. Always try to prioritize your day. If you are either working full-time or if you're making a career out of writing, prioritizing and organizing is essential for any type of work, no matter whether it's painting or writing or composing or doing lesson plans or what. You have to prioritize and you have to organize your life in order to be successful in what you are focusing on. Because I'm new at the full-time writing, I'm still trying to get in a groove that's good for me. Right now, I don't have any set days that I do anything. I usually write when I feel like writing. For example, today, this is pre-taped by the way. Today I'm going to spend the afternoon editing the K-Cons because I'm about 20,000 words in, and I usually try to stop at about 20 to 25,000 words in, do some editing, do some additions, take some things out, and then the next 20,000 words I do the same thing. And then the next 20,000 words I do the same thing, and etc., etc. So that I do have. And then there's also an app that I want to share with you today, and it is, we'll get to that in a minute actually. Let's see, I had to organize this episode, and I'm getting way off track. Let's see here. I want to make sure that I tell you everything that I need to tell you, because this stuff is important, especially for young writers who are wanting to begin their writing career or start writing books or short stories or poems. This is very important for teens and young adults who are just getting started into the publishing industry or wanting to look into the publishing industry. When you're young, you have tons of time, it seems, unless you have sports that are going on. For example, I wrote my first book and finished it at age 16. I had a lot of free time, there were a lot of snow days, and I worked on that book with a friend of mine. And hopefully that book will come out someday as well. But when you're a kid, things are different. But when you're a kid, you also have these immense dreams that you want to chase, and one of those dreams could very well be writing. Okay, number 3. I should have bullet pointed this. That would have been much more simple and made a lot more sense. Set realistic expectations for yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself, and don't panic. Set a realistic deadline for yourself if you are writing a book. Set realistic goals. For example, The Cacons of Darkness, I gave myself a year to finish that book. That's really a little bit too long for me, but I wanted to give myself some leeway. And with me writing full-time, I can probably knock it out in 6 months, but I gave myself a year. That was a very realistic goal for me, and a very realistic timeline and a deadline. It gives me plenty of time to write. The Time Torn Asunder is a joint project with Jamie Ronan, so we deal with that a little bit differently. And if you are co-writing books with other people, you're going to have to take into account their schedule and what they're able to do. Skype is a wonderful thing that you can use to work with your with editors, with cover designers, with your co-authors. So keep that in mind also if you are looking into publishing, or if you are already published and you're trying to make it work. Work through your obstacles. Writer's block can be a detrimental process. I, for one, run into writer's block a little bit too much, and it's very upsetting to me, but it's out of my control, and the only thing that I can do is to continue to focus on ideas and focus on different things that pertain to the book. Sometimes I revert back to character development, go back to the drawing board and see what I can do to enhance the character, or is there anything else in the plot that I can bang out, as opposed to sitting down and working on the manuscript. Crisis and illness they are going to come into the picture. Life is full of ups and downs. For example, I have not had any time to write this week because of the passing of a family member in my husband's family. So there's been no time to write. So yesterday I spent most of the day editing. Today I have, and also you've got housework, you have other responsibilities that come into play. So keep in mind that it's okay to try and work through those obstacles. With young people, you typically have jobs, you have homework, you have sports, you have extracurricular activities. Try to take into account what days those fall on, and if you're too tired to work on a book or a piece or a painting or whatever, it's okay. Breathe. I had a supervisor that I worked for in children's services, and whenever anybody would get upset, she would say, breathe. Everybody just breathe. We need to breathe. And it didn't make a lot of sense to me then, but now, looking back on it, especially when I was a supervisor in child welfare and I would look to her for advice, it made total sense. Just breathe. There's also a very useful app that I want to share with you, and it is called Write-A-Meter. And it is awesome. I'm going to see if I can pull it up on my phone and see if you can see it. That right there is Write-A-Meter. And I have a Samsung Galaxy, so I got this off of the Play Store, and it is free. And what it does is it helps me meet daily goals, weekly goals, long-term goals. It even has a way to remind you that it's time to write. So if you are a smartphone person or an app person, I think that app will be wonderful for you. You can even take screenshots and keep like a diary. Like, for example, I upload those onto my Facebook 2015 photo album as well as my author page. It also keeps your fans kind of updated as to where you are on your project. So it's not only helpful for you, but it's also helpful. I apologize, my SD card got full, so I had to cut and add in. But I'm almost done. So I wish it could held out longer, but it didn't. But anyway, I was talking about the Write-O-Meter. It is Write-O-Meter, and you can find it in the App Store. Being organized is an important factor to anything that you do in your life. So in conclusion, I'm hoping that this has helped you. Use tools that help you be a better writer, a better creator, a better worker, a better you. Whether it's calendars or whether it's like sticky notes, post-it notes, or most of all, just adhere to the goals that you set for yourself and don't get discouraged. I know it's easy to get discouraged, but there's always someone that you can talk to. Find a fellow creator, someone that's doing the same thing you are, to give you support and help and to listen to you, and you listen to them. Jamie Ronan is my go-to person whenever I'm upset or whenever I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall or spinning my tires. He is the person that I go to talk to bounce ideas off of, and he also comes to me. He is the person that inspired the schedule that I just shared with you. He is very talented, and he finds himself struggling with a lot of the things that we went over today. So I would like to thank him personally for giving me the idea to talk about this with my YouTube viewers and with my readers and with my friends and my family and my fans. So with that, I would like to thank you very much for tuning in to tonight's episode. The next episode will be my weight loss journey, and that will air on the 17th of February at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on this YouTube channel. I would also like to remind you that the Sundry series event is still up on Facebook, and it will continue to be up on Facebook to update you on any new things, and also the links to these videos will be seen there. I encourage you to share these videos, especially with young authors, to-be authors, and aspiring authors. It's very, very important that they understand what's ahead and how to deal with some of the obstacles that are ahead of them. Next time we meet will be more of a personal episode, and hopefully I'll be able to give you some tips to help you with your weight loss journey if you have decided to get on that road to weight loss. I still am on it. It is a life change. It is a lifestyle change, that is for sure. And sometimes you'll be up and sometimes you'll be down, but we will talk about that next time. For now, thank you so much for tuning in, and you have a great day wherever you are. God bless and love and light to you. Thanks.